Hey friends, Megan McIntosh here. Welcome to this video. I am really excited to bring you this topic today because this is something that I'm an expert in, and that is about how to create content, posts, videos that captivate your ideal client. So if you're watching, say hello. Say what's up, put a 1 down below if you're watching right now, put a 2 down below if you're watching the replay. Let me know where you're coming in from, what city, what town, what country. Hey Lauren, nice to see you. I am just outside of Toronto, Canada. That's where I'm based, and it's coming around to fall. The weather's getting a little bit cool. So I don't want to go on too much about that, where I'm living and all that fun stuff. I want to get into the juicy details. So just to give you some idea of why I know my stuff, some of you might know that I have a postgrad in journalism, and after I did journalism, I actually did an internship at a TV station. And with that, I had to be kind of like a roving reporter during the weekend. So I would work with a videographer, and I would do shoots. I would go out in the community, and I would, he would take the filming, and I would basically interview people, and then I would come back to the newsroom and I would have to write a 1 or 2 minute story, right? So I had to really learn how to use punchy words. Obviously I learned a lot of how to do that in journalism school, but it was really something that once I got in the field, I really had to really get good at this. And some of you also know that I have over 15 years in sales and marketing, and I've just been writing a lot in my career, right? And over 5 years ago, I took the leap and decided I wanted to start writing and directing films. And even though I was afraid about doing that, I was like nervous, didn't know if I'd be a good writer. I mean, I kind of felt like I could do it, but I was unsure. I just took the leap, decided to go for it. And so I do have a lot of background in terms of writing. And with my coaching business, I have to do a ton of writing, right? I have to do Facebook posts, Instagram posts, do Facebook Live videos. I have to write good headlines. So this is what I'm going to talk about to you guys today, and I'm going to share some of my secret tips. So first off, the first thing I want you to think about is who your ideal clients are, right? So this could be the person that is watching or reading your content. You really want to get into their headspace and really understand the way that they're reading what you're writing. So one of the things that I notice that people do every once in a while is they talk about stories, right? They explain themselves, they do stories online, which is great. It's great to have a storytelling way of putting into your content. But the thing is you want to make sure that you really are able to just not like just do your story and then say, here's my vulnerable piece, but really get that person, what are they getting value about that story? What are they gonna learn? What's the solution you're providing to them? And also, how are you crafting that story? So if you're noticing that you're putting a lot of, I did this, I went here, I went there, that's not how you wanna craft the story. You really wanna think about the word you, right? So if you're thinking about, or if you ever wonder, so sometimes what I do is I put myself into their shoes, and using that word you is one of the best things that you can use in the English language to get people's attention. Actually, one of the biggest words that I learned in my sales career that really helps people, that really gets their attention, is using someone's name. Now, oftentimes you won't use someone's name in your content, but this is similar to when you're doing sales calls. You still have to use powerful languaging when you're doing sales on calls. And so one of the things I learned in my sales career is that the most powerful word that we can hear is our own name. And so if someone is rambling on in a sales call, you might want to actually say their name. And that will, like, boop, they'll automatically think, oh wait, that person wants to say something to me, right? So if you're rattling on and on and on, your client is doing that, you can say their name, and that is a word that really sparks them to stop and listen to you. Okay, so first of all, you want to use you and not me. You want to make sure that you're talking to your ideal clients. You want to make sure that when you are speaking with them, that you're trying to help solve a solution for them. And of course, put story into the content you're creating, but always think, what is the lesson in this story? How is this story going to help my client or customer, right? I'm not just putting a story out there about me and there's no learning to it, or they're just reading about my, vulnerability on the internet, but then they don't really have something to take away, right? What is that teaching they're going to take away after they read that story that you're putting out there to promote your offer or to promote your services? If you just, tell a story about yourself and then that's it, they're not going to be very intrigued. The next one is use power words. So there is certain words that copywriters use, and these are common words, and they're things that basically trigger curiosity, and they also persuade you by using emotional words, right? They create an emotional response with specific type of words. And so it's usually words that are things like captivate, right? Things like magic, things like transform, words like now, words like, what is another power word? You can actually search power words. So you can actually go online and search power words, and you will have a ton of words that you can use for copies. So for your copy. So whenever I write scripts or whenever I write copy for the internet, I like to Google this kind of thing, right? So there's certain words I know that do trigger this type of emotional response. The word now does, the word today does. What else? There's so many different words, but the thing is you want to know what those words are and kind of sprinkle them into your copy. So when I'm doing a film or when I'm writing posts, what I'll do is I will literally go online, Google power words, and then oftentimes there's blog posts written about, the 700 power words to use or the 400 power words to use, and then you can go through them and say that word works for this, what I'm trying to say here, and that word works for what I'm trying to say over there. I think power words are really important, and make sure that if you can, have a power word in your headline or title. So if you'll notice in my title, I use the word captivate. That's a power word. That's one that I researched and I purposely put it in because I knew it was a power word. The other thing is about titles and headlines is you want to look at having that headline and title be really captivating, be really striking, having an emotional punch to it, right? So the best way to figure out how to put a headline in your post or how to do a headline for your Facebook Live video is to understand the idea of power words, but also understand the idea of how headlines are structured. So if you go and look at websites that have magazines, so it could be, in the old days we don't have magazines online. You would just go to a magazine store. This is what I used to do when I used to create copy, is I would go to magazine stores and look at headlines. I still do that sometimes because it's kind of fun to do that rather than just looking at all the headlines online. So you could go to your favorite magazine and see what are the headlines they're using for their stories, for their articles. But it's sometimes also still fun to go to stores and look at different, like on a magazine rack at your local drugstore or wherever, and see what are the headlines that are, punching out to me, that are coming right at me, right? So I'll do that sometimes. I will go to a magazine store. I like reading magazines and that kind of thing. So I'll go there, and if there's certain headlines that sort of pop and I'm drawn to them out of hundreds and hundreds of magazines, I will take those headlines and I will pop them into my phone, knowing that maybe I'll be able to use that headline later, but not use it exactly, but use the structure, right? So some headline structures would be something like how to, how to ... or 5 tips to ... right? So there's very common headlines that you'll notice that are used all the time. And so once you start understanding these, you'll get good at really writing a headline without even having to do research first, right? So for my headline, I was going to do a how to create content that captivates. So I just wanted to find one power word, but I knew that a how-to headline tends to draw in people. So really pay attention to your headlines. So many people are on social media now, and you want to make sure that you're posts and your videos don't get lost. So you really need to make your headline and the title of whatever you're writing or whatever the video is about to be so strong, right? This has to be one of the strongest parts of your content. And it may seem like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it is, right? It's so competitive out there. So if you can be really, take care of the headline that you write, this is like huge. So just keep thinking about your headline. Whenever you're writing a headline, like this is why when I write headlines for my Facebook Live videos, I actually take the time to think about the headline. I just don't just like, hey, here's my tips. No, right? Oftentimes when you want to write tips, you want to write a number before the tips, right? Here are my 5 smart strategies, or 5 secret news report, whatever, right? So usually you like another thing about headlines is putting a number in the headlines, right? So they feel like they can take something away rather than like, well, how many tips is it going to be, right? If you can actually be clear on the number, they'll read it and they'll say 5 tips. Oh, this is going to be quick. I can just go through those 5 tips. Okay. The next thing is you want to have that aha moment. So when you create content, are you creating an aha moment? Are you having something in the content that the person can walk away from and really feel like they gathered value from it? Now, I talked about this before in terms of what's in it for them and what's the solution you're helping to provide. So for instance, hopefully one of these things that I'm talking about, you're gonna go away and say, hey, I'm going to go to a magazine rack and pay more attention to the headlines, or I'm going to really look, Google power words and think about that as important for my writing next time I write a post, or next time I write a blog post, write a social media post or blog post. So can you give an aha moment? Can you give someone a really teachable thing that they're gonna feel good that they actually read your content, right? If you write content, just be very careful that if you put content out there and it's consistently boring and there's nothing to take away from except for your vulnerability and your story, they're gonna get bored of it, right? So you really do need to put value into the content. The next thing I wanna talk about is, let me see here. I'm almost done actually. Oh, I'll just briefly touch upon this, but there are 7 types of power words. And so these are the emotion words, right? So there's power words that are related to fear, to encouragement, to lust, to anger, to greed, safety, and to like forbidden. So for instance, lust could be a power word like captivate and charm. Anger could be bullshit and smash, right? Like these are words that like, you're like, whoa. And so I'm not going to tell you all the different words because there's hundreds and hundreds of words, but just think there's a specific emotions that keep people like, where they're like, woo, like a big, like when you hear something specific and you hear something that's like secret, or you hear something like explosive or explode, right? There's certain words that really make you go, oh, tell me more about that, right? Like magnetic is a power word. Magic is a power word. What else is a power word that I know off by heart? I'm not sure. I know persuade. I'm trying to think other ones. Captivate, I mentioned. There's so many. That's why I actually Google before I write. Whenever I'm writing content, I make sure that I don't just think it's a power word, right? Oh, monetize is a power word. Money is a power word. Things that are like putting fear in people. I know you don't need to like really scare them, but last chance would be a power word, right? Because it's kind of like, oh, I better get on this. Putting type of greed. People like, greed is in terms of like the theme, so you want to really think of things that bring that emotion to the surface, right? Okay, let me see what else I have. Oh, I said study magazines. Oh, newspapers as well. I know I said magazines and you can go online, but newspapers as well, because they have to write so many articles, newspapers. And so if you go online on newspapers like the New York Times or whatever your local newspaper is, honestly, they're writing headlines because that's their job. And so if you can think about, all right, what are the headlines they're writing recently? And can I go every single day and think of, the structure? It'll really help your writing. Another thing I wanted to bring up is emojis. So oftentimes when you're writing posts in social media, you want to make sure that you're breaking up the sentence because it can seem very heavy if you're writing a lot of content. So what I like to do is I like to put emojis in the headlines. I also like to put emojis in the body of my content, as well as split up the paragraphs, right? So make spacing through it. So there's certain ways you can do that. If you're going on Instagram, you could probably use an app like Planoly to help you space out your content, but it's really important because if it's all squished in together, and I know sometimes Instagram does that where it like smushes in, just make sure that you look at it beforehand in an app that makes sure so that it's spaced out, because otherwise people will just kind of pass by it and it's just like, oh, that's too much for my brain. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it helped you get some like aha moments for creating your own content. Have a great day. Bye.